What's going on, pal?
Here we are.
Episode 6.
Episode 6. How are you, bud?
Fighting a little bit of a cold right now. Yeah, woke up this morning with a little bit of the sniffles, but I got tested and negative. So
that's good.
We're moving.
Yeah, there's so much stuff going around right now. It's hard to tell what you have, and
but it's yeah. I feel I feel it just kind of a little wore out. Been sneezing a lot, runny nose, but I'm all medicined up and ready to whoop it on tonight. So
ready to rock and roll.
Is there anything new in your world, brother?
Just trying to get through the new year here with work, which is absolutely insane, but got a couple more days, couple things to tie up, and hopefully everything will go good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You got what game you got going on over there to your?
Oh, that is a bowl game, the Cheez-It Bowl. Sorry about that.
No. Keep it on, brother. Keep it going. Right. I'll let you know the score.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Looking forward for tonight's show. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in thus far. And obviously, I want to give a shout out to our number one fan. Do you think you know who it is?
I think I know. I think it's the young stud that they call Bryson
Stallion. Yeah. Shout out to Bryson Pajak. I'm sure he's watching, and we've also got one more little man shout out. We're gonna give out to Big Willie style up at Mount Baker in Saranac Lake. So he's probably a close second for biggest fan.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm excited, man. We've
Mount Baker. Where's Mount Baker at?
Mount Baker's in shout out Saranac Lake, New York. It's northern New York in the Adirondacks. So,
okay.
Yeah. Right. Basically, they create the best. It's a Section 7. They create the best hockey players come out of the north.
And is that where you came from?
Yes.
So maybe not the best then, huh?
Oh, well, hey, pal. Everybody needs a third line grinder. And shout out to P Money if you're watching. Yeah, everybody played a role there, Matthew.
Okay. Well,
did you play any sports growing up?
I did. I played hockey as well. More of a beer league type thing.
Yeah. You were the water guy, huh? You brought the cooler?
No. I wasn't that. I could skate. I'm a decent skater. I just not much of a puck handler. So it's just going out there to disrupt. Disrupt and then attempt to get the puck to somebody on my team.
Okay. Hey, like I said, everybody plays a role. Let's go through some of our comments real quick. Let's see who we've got joining with us. Yeah, Big Willie's in the house. Come on, Bruce. So that's a funny quick story I can tell you. Growing up, I always hurt myself. And bull in a china shop, and my Uncle Bill, who I'm sure is watching right now, used to call me Bruiser and I was always banging and bumping into things and creating bruises. So
right,
and they're up on Mount Baker, so you can put that together. What else we got? Look, we got
Danny McDonough's in the house.
I know Dan McDonough. That's
man. Now I feel honored now.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. Big D's in the house. Danny McDonough, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. Congratulations on the new baby.
Congratulations to you and yours on the baby. Beautiful baby.
Yeah. All right, brother. So what do you say? You want to hop into getting into who we are going to be talking with today?
Absolutely. That sounds. We want to allow as much time as possible. This is going to be a fantastic interview. Very excited about it. So.
Yeah. So for those of our return viewers out there, normally at this time we would start going into our news segment to build up to our buddy check. But today we're gonna allot a little bit more time for our guests, as it's we're gonna have a really good conversation. And so yeah, we'll get into it. So here we are. We're coming to the end of a year, looking into a fresh start in 20 to 22.
Yep.
We thought it was the best approach excuse me, our best approach to change and a new beginning was to provide to you and our audience a professional who made a career change and has climbed the ladder of success in her new career path. I stumbled through that. I apologize.
No, that's okay. No, I think
my face feels like a brick. But go ahead.
No, yeah, I give you credit just for being on here. I know it sucks. Yeah. So where we left off in our past shows, we're doing, obviously our last show was on self-care, self-awareness, self-love, whatever you want to call it. And then pretty much all of our guests, as we recapped last week, have been kind of in that ballpark. What we're looking for now is we're going to keep touching on that here and there, but we want to get some motivation in here and some ass kickers to get it going. So,
well, I think ass kickers is the best way to start this little introduction. So today, everybody, we're going to be calling Dr. Margaret Stewart, who is an associate professor of communications studies at the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, Florida. She's an expert in social media strategy, social listening, and crisis communications on social media. Dr. Stewart also teaches courses in communication theory, public speaking, mediated communication, and strategic social media. That's a lot to say.
Yeah.
That is, dude.
I have a hard time saying that, let alone doing it or being an expert in it. So
I read it like 13 times before we even got on here, and that time it was just like the first time I was like, oh my god.
Right.
You know what's really great about my relationship with Margaret, it kind of rolls into when you join the military and you find out you're going to be meeting like all walks of life. Well, that also like extends to their family, and as how I know and how you know Margaret, we served with her brother. But outside of that relationship, Margaret and I have had a great time to create our own relationship and kind of our own bond amongst each other outside the military. So it's been very, very nice. She's somebody I can always turn to, throw my crazy wild ass ideas off, and she can tell me to, get squared away and focus, right. or chase your dreams, wild man,
right.
So I'm very,
you usually do the latter, right? Chase your dreams.
Chasing dreams. That's what I'm out here to do. So
yep.
So also before we get in here, I've known just a little bit, like this is like the salesman in me. I've only known just a little bit to stay a little bit dangerous. People ever ask like, oh, so what's Richie's sister do? Like I can get enough information out there, but I've never like had a focused conversation with her pertaining about like what her focuses are and how she molds people. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our audience at Disarrange, Dr. Margaret Stewart. How are you, love?
Hi guys.
Hey. Welcome.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. How's everything going?
Good. I wasn't going to make the intro easy on you. I had to hit you with all the credentials.
Oh my God. I stuttered through the first part, and I was thinking in the back of my head going through that as I'm stuttering. I'm like, oh man, wait until you get into all the things that she does. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, for the record to the audience, usually even when I give you my best advice, you usually only listen to about half of it and do you anyway, but that's okay. I'll always be here to help you clean up the pieces of what's left.
Hey, listen, I wouldn't expect that. That's a brutal honesty right there. So I love it. I love the festive background you got going on.
So here's the truth is that I was going to lock myself in my office because there's 3 really loud dogs here, but my office looks like a Christmas storage unit. So this is the best we could do for a background. I went in there. There's not even a chair in there anymore. I don't know what happened. I'm like, oh, I can't set this up right now. So this is the Christmas break broadcasting center.
Love it.
Live from the living room.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You might see my motivation wall behind me though. Do you see? I don't know if you can see through right here. It's got the flag hanging up.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we've got a few motivated pieces around the house. I just got a really cool canvas of the Declaration of Independence that's going up on that wall for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
So yes, I'm doing a little rearranging here.
That's cool. That's really
Dude, most moto family I know.
Aw. Well, I'm really happy to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you so much for the invitation to join you. I understand I'm the first lady you're having on the show, gentlemen.
You're definitely and nobody better. Let me tell you, we had this plan for a while. We are definitely blessed to have you, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah. So when we were kind of planning all this, in the early September, and we were kind of laying everything out, and we got into October. We started to map out who we wanted to have on the show, and who we want to provide kind of a platform to share who, what, where, why, when, right? And when it came up to like, hey man, we're kind of like all dudes, all veterans, all this, and they're like, I got it. I just knew. I brought it to the table, and we both were like, this is the person we want. And so we're very, very delighted to have you, and we look forward to really, I want to just hop right in, and if you don't mind, give everybody a little bit of a background of your education, where you started from, where you come from, and yeah, go.
Sure. So I guess the story starts with the irony of it all is now I teach college, but really when it came time many, many moons back for me to make a decision about going to college, I really wasn't very excited about that. In high school, I was a pretty good student. I was taking honors classes, but I was really bored at school. So I was getting like decent grades, but I wasn't enjoying what I was learning, right? So I had a good job at the time. I was making, what for that time was really good money. So I was thinking about taking a break after graduated high school. My parents were not supportive of that idea at all. They were like very insistent that, I was going to go get a college education, that was, important to them, that I pursued that. So I went to college in Philadelphia at a small Catholic school called LaSalle University. And it was interesting because I remember when I first started out, I was adamant about being a business major. I was going to study entrepreneurship. I don't really know what I was going to do with that, but that was the big game plan. Okay. And then my first semester, freshman year, I was taking classes in accounting and calculus, and I was doing terrible. And I came home that Christmas break, and my parents were like, this is not acceptable. Got to figure this thing out. So that summer after my freshman year, I had an internship in New York City at a financial firm. If you think about it, that's kind of like every kid's dream, right? I get to go work at the Big Apple. I get to commute into the city every day. Like, this is going to be awesome. And I hated it. I hated what I was doing. My work was boring. The favorite part of my day was the ride into the city and home from the city when I would listen to the radio, right? Back when we used to listen to the radio. And so I really enjoyed listening to music on the way, in and out of my commute. And I was like, man, I wonder, how do I get on the radio, right? And so sure enough, I go back to school that fall, and I walk down to the communication center, and they're like, yeah, we have a major in broadcast media. And I'm like, all right, well, let's give that a whirl. So that's what started my journey in communication back during sophomore year of college. And then I just kind of kept growing from there. I got an internship in the major market radio group in Philadelphia when I was a senior, started working for them when I graduated. Then I went over and worked for a record label for a little bit, did that. And thinking about like the history and timeline of things, this was the early 2000s now. So the iPod was born. So the radio industry really started to change. Yeah, so people were really worried. I was watching a lot of my friends who were working in the music business who were having to change jobs a lot and stuff, and move around a lot, and I was getting a little bit worried. So I got a job at this company. They I don't know if you guys are familiar with a company called MediaBase. MediaBase is like a data conglomerate. They produce a lot of the data that gets put into music charts and that sort of thing, right? So I worked for a competitor.
They pull up resources and bring it together.
Right.
Okay.
So my company basically developed an algorithm. They were really a tech startup. They weren't really a music enterprise, but their algorithm allowed us to detect what songs and advertisements were playing on radio. And then we would sell the data to different people who needed it. So we would sell our data to magazines for chart publication. We had a partnership with ASCAP, so we would give them data for them to pay out royalties, for, songwriters and things like that. And so I climbed the ladder there. I was pretty young when I was working there, but I made my way up to a manager role. Oh, hi, Rod. Yes, go Birds. Rod, my fellow Eagles fan of the group. So I did that for a while, but then I got moved over into a business development position. They took me out of my role in the music space of the company and moved me over into business development, where I was really doing more sales. And I am not a salesperson at all. It's just not my thing. I leave that to you, Turn. You feel like you can sell anything to anybody. Me, I'm not. I can't close a deal. I'm not a salesman, and I wasn't really too thrilled either with some of our product development at the time either. So it wasn't even a product I could really buy into. So I was having a hard time in that role. By this time, though, I was back in graduate school for my master's degree, and I was going to my alma mater, LaSalle again. I was studying. We called it professional communication at the time, but now it's more strategic communication.
Okay.
Kind of a mix between public relations and organizational communication. So team building, leadership, decision-making, problem solving, a little bit of media relations and corporate communication tied into that. So I really liked my classes. I liked what I was doing. And I just didn't know what the next step was going to be. And then it was honestly a water cooler conversation with a colleague of mine who he asked me if I ever thought about teaching. And I was like, I'm not really a kid person. I don't think I'm going to go into teaching. And he's like, no, I mean, college students. I was like, I'm 25. Who's going to hire me?
Right.
And he said, you're underselling your experience because you've been working now in a major market radio, for years now. And you also manage the internship program at our company. So you're used to working with these young adults. And he said, I see the way that they respect you. They look up to you, even though you're young. You have a good command about you that they like. And I think that you do really well in the classroom. So I thanked him for his comments and kind of went about my way there. But then a few weeks later, I'm looking online, see what's out there.
Right.
And this full-time job is out, open at a local small school in Philly, and they wanted somebody to teach a section of radio production in the following fall. And I was like, boom, throw my hat in the ring. The worst they're going to say is no, and then move on with life, and life goes on, right? And, I got that job, and sure enough, within a few months of teaching there, I was like, I need to make a move and get over to the classroom full time. I just wasn't feeling really satisfied anymore sitting in the cube all day. And I knew, like I said, my company was kind of changing and shifting a lot, and I didn't know where that was going to take me. So I was like, I think this is a better move. So I just started teaching part-time, as many classes as I could, and till I earned my annual salary doing that. And then a year or two later, made the decision to go back for my PhD. And that's around the time I met you guys.
I was going to say, I think now that's about the time our paths crossed. And
yes, so I was in the academic trenches, a little bit of a different battlefield there, but still some interesting land. And so went through that program. I did my dissertation on how military families use social media to communicate during deployment. So that's what made me fall into this social media expertise.
Okay, I knew it had to do something with social media, and I knew there was the communications, and I just couldn't put them all together, right? Like, okay, very cool.
Yep. So, so that was really neat. I got to interview civilian spouses of active duty military and just learn about how they were using platforms like Facebook and Skype and other things to maintain their relationships when they were apart. So did that project. I really liked that project and finished up school and went on my way. I was teaching for 2 more years in Philadelphia. I had this feeling Philly wasn't my last stop at that point. Something just wasn't settling right for me. And then this job opened up in Florida. I didn't even know where Jacksonville, Florida was on the map. I remember looking up. I was like, oh, it's a city and it's on the coast. So I was like, all right, well, let's go down to Florida and give this a whirl. My family has been vacationing in New Smyrna Beach for years, so that's only an hour and a half south of me now.
Cool.
And so it's kind of cool because I was able to come down here, and I was like, well, if I hate it in Jacksonville, I'll just go to the beach house every weekend. And what's funny is I got so happy here and like made so many awesome friends the first year I lived here that, you know, the first couple of years I lived here, I barely went to the beach house. It was like, oh, I guess my family's in town, I should go, you know. But it was a good path. And then I was able to get in here and just grow. I earned my tenure 2 years ago. So that's a big academic badge of honor.
Congrats.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, big promotion gives you some job security that is important. Sorry, we have some furry guests here who are joining in.
Perfect. You're welcome.
So it's been a good ride, but I've learned a lot for sure. And like every boss has to do, I keep a side hustle too. I do some consulting in my spare time.
Very cool.
Is that a communications consulting?
Yeah. So I started doing this. I started doing this back when I was still in graduate school. People would hire me to do mainly presentation coaching and then interview training were the two kind of kickoffs.
Yeah.
But now over the years, it went by way of social media. And I did do some strategic social media management for a while too, but my heart really wasn't in that. I'm not a content creator. I always say I'm like the anti-social media strategist. Because if it were to me, we would get rid of all of it. I would get rid of all of it. I actually think there's more kind of negative, consequences than positive consequences to a lot of this. And the more I study, the more that's reaffirmed for me.
I agree with that.
But here we are. So, while it's here, I might as well, dance with it for a bit. So I did. But now I find myself kind of turning back more towards those communication cornerstones. So some of my most recent work has been doing research for a legal team that needs my help to basically dive into the social networks and kind of know how to search for different things and help them compile a case based on evidence that's on the web, but maybe they might not be able to find it as quickly as I can just because I know where to go looking, I'm also helping as well with some interview clients and speech coaching clients still. So I've kind of swung back in the other direction. And I actually like that better. And I think that's where my business will probably continue to grow more in coming years. I don't really see myself taking on as much of the social media work. And now more than anything, I usually refer that work out to other, friends and colleagues of mine who've built up their businesses purely around social media management. And some of them are just rocking. So I'd rather give them the business knowing they enjoy it than me do it and not feel really fulfilled.
Well, you end up building your circle. I have to ask, so when you made that jump from the music industry into the communications world, did you do any type of research or know anything about, if it was more of a male dominant career path or a female dominant career path?
No, I had exactly zero idea what I was doing.
Cool.
It was really more of baptism by fire because I just sort of thought that I would go to school and finish school and then slide into a permanent job, right? That was, kind of where I just believed that the way things happen. And what I didn't realize when I started in grad school is just how competitive it is, even at the graduate level to climb the ladder. So for example, I was already teaching, some batch of like full-time, part-time when I started graduate school. And I actually got a lot of criticism, particularly from a couple of professors who, were kind of the old timers in my graduate program, that I was, I shouldn't be working that hard. I should only be focusing on my studies. And that was frustrating because I was like, I have bills to pay. I can't not work. Like, that's a great theory. I wish I could just hang out and read my studies too, but I got to make money. So there was, that was a challenge to accept. I think I wasn't really ready for the reality that would be criticized. I'd always been praised for working hard. So the idea that it would be criticized was new to me. But, I didn't let it discourage me. Like I kept on, I kept on doing what I was doing, and just made it a point to make sure that I prioritized getting my work done at a good quality so that they couldn't really criticize me about that one thing, and what I'll say to this day is that if I had given up working during grad school and had not been teaching, then I definitely wouldn't have landed the first job that I got when I finished school. And I probably would have been seen as underqualified for that position. So it would have taken me longer to climb when I got out than by climbing my way through. And so I'm glad I didn't let that advice discourage me. But I think I also was a little surprised too. It was just a very interesting world. And I've seen, I follow some of these like higher education groups online and stuff. And there's a lot of chatter that still exists about how we put graduate students through, through a lot of like kind of trial and tribulations. And there's an attitude that still exists to some extent about kind of making it hard on the students to, build them up. And that's something that I never really embraced that. And I know in my own work, like I try to be more of a mentor than somebody who's putting students down. I want to see my students succeed. I want to see them grow. So the idea of putting them down to, character build, I've never really bought into that ideology at all. It's not really
Margaret, when you went into teaching, was that something that was natural for you? Did you have did it scratch an itch? Did you have a passion for it? What was it about that really was attractive for you?
So for me, the thing that I really liked about teaching right from the beginning is I'm a really naturally good presenter. I always have been really good at public speaking, and I'm not afraid of it. So for me, getting in front of the classroom and lecturing felt very natural. What I had to learn in teaching, though, was that you can't only lecture all the time. Now especially, fast forward, I started teaching in 2007. So you fast forward 14 years here, and now, these young students today, their attention spans are real fast. If I could teach by TikTok video, that would probably be like the most effective thing for me to do, because they like it in real short, condensed little bits. So I think adjusting to that's been a big change over time. And I know that others have struggled with that too. So I think for me, having to expand my approach to teaching was always a challenge, just based on like what new strategies were out there, what the new generation likes and wants. That's been probably the biggest kind of ongoing piece of development for me as I've moved through my career.
So change has kind of always been one of those things you have to adapt to and kind of improvise, adapt, and overcome. As you know, in the Marine Corps, is something that we do all the time. So you've always had to stay fluid with your approach, fluid with how you teach everything.
Most definite. And I would say that I think most recently too, with, COVID and going to remote learning for so long too. I mean, that was like a huge adjustment for everybody. So I think for us going through that whole situation, you really did have to be very agile. You just had to embrace the change, because if you didn't, it was going to be a rough go. I mean, it was like overnight, all of a sudden, we all had to become online educators. And a lot of people, I think, were not really fully prepared for how much work and effort that was going to take. And thankfully, I had already taught one class online, so I had some idea what I was doing, but it was definitely still an adjustment to take, the rest of the classes and get them into something that was going to work. And then we're teaching on Zoom. So that was just crazy because you're suddenly in your students' houses, they're in your house. You're like, this is weird,
Yeah.
So, and then the fact that it went on for so long too, and it was a lot of uncertainty throughout that whole thing. Like initially, okay, we're just going to be here for a few weeks. Never mind. We're going to do the rest of the semester here. Oh, well, next year we're going to stay online too. So, it just was one of those things that kind of kept transforming. But that agility that I learned early on in the career helped me for sure. This career in teaching, you can't get static with it. You can't, you can't get too comfortable in one place because just the minute you do, that's when something will happen, something will change up. A student will go through an experience that, changes you or influences you, and you have to help them and be supportive of them. That's hard, because you take on a lot for your students too. It's not just like your little world, it's your world plus however many students you have and dealing with all of their differences and challenges and that sort of thing too. So
how did you deal with how did you deal emotionally with that transition of all of a sudden now we're going to be fully online, and then the seclusion of COVID, but then having to kind of be that bright person of knowledge that you're teaching and molding young minds? Like how was that, managing that emotion?
It wasn't easy. And I would definitely say it was one of the more challenging turns of my career for sure. But I also felt like it was an opportunity. It was one of those things where it was like, okay, this is either going to show me that I really am a good educator, somebody who's versatile, somebody who can, change it up quickly, somebody who can improvise, adapt, overcome, or I'm going to get, stuck and struggle here. And I knew that I didn't want to make this harder than it had to be. So I tried to just lean on things that I knew had worked traditionally in online teaching and learning before, and just kind of bring those in slowly. And I also used a lot of positive and reassuring messages with my students because they were kind of like, they're freaked out. A lot of them, they didn't know what to think. So many of them, they're away from home for the first time. Now they're like trapped in their dorm room. And, there was just a lot of movement, especially at the beginning. And so it was one of those things where I could either try to be a calming presence to the situation or add fuel to the fire. And I knew this was not time for fiery Margaret to come out. It was just better to be calm. So alone, keep firing,
Yeah. So I'm interested, Margaret. I mean, obviously you are fiery and you are confident, and you are, you set goals, you meet them. What would you say to not just a female or anybody who lacks confidence and wants to get into something but is unsure, and really just how to put the first foot forward and keep going, keep persevering, and keep doing what they need to do?
Yeah, so I think there's a few pieces of advice that I can speak to on that. And one is, if you don't have belief in yourself, first and foremost, then it is going to be difficult for you to get off the ground. So even if you have a feeling inside of you, like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be good at this. I don't know if I'm going to be great at this, but you have at least that little bit of momentum to say, I'm willing to try, I'm willing to put forth some effort and really put forth some effort. I think that's an important piece to making progress in whatever area it is. When we were talking the other day, one of the pieces of advice that I received when I was going through some adversity towards the end of my road in graduate school was a colleague of mine who talked to me about staying true to myself. And at the time I felt like this is the most cliche, ridiculous advice. Like, what does that even mean? But what's crazy is now all these years later, I can think back on that piece of advice and I know exactly what she means, which was like, don't try to fit yourself into somebody else's definition of who they want you to be. And so staying true to who you are, what you want to accomplish, what you want to try. There's a lot of noise these days. And that's one thing that I don't like about social media. It's a noisy place. And there's so many trolls, there's so much criticism out there. And a lot of it is so unnecessary. Like somehow in the social media land, we miss the memo of if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all. Like those rules have gone away when we talk about the way many people behave online. And
that's highlighted when people become famous from doing the complete opposite. Right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
I mean, the idea of being able to, be uplifting, be supportive, and I think giving yourself a break. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, we're our own harshest critic, and it's okay to be critical of yourself to a degree, but then also being graceful and kind of taking it easy on yourself is important too, because we're not perfect beings, we're human beings. So I think if anybody's in a place where they want to make a change, they want to grow, being willing to take the risk is one, staying true to who you are, and maybe tapping into what is it about what you're looking to do, what are you looking to get back from that? What's the opportunity there for you? Why are you going after it? And is that in alignment with what's going to work for you? Is it a good fit? Is it a fit that's natural? Does it embrace things that are natural gifts to you and maybe help you?
Everyone can have something, right? Like us three right here could have completely different alignments in terms of what we need, and mine may be not realistic for you or Matt, but it's realistic for me, right? And so if I'm sitting there constantly looking at other people, you have to really dive deep into yourself and say, okay, like, this is what I'm capable of, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I'm ready to do. I'm not that good at what he can do. It's okay, right? Like lean into what you're good at and figure out and align yourself properly with what your goals are.
I think there's an intriguing part of challenging yourself, right? And this, I take everything back to the Marine Corps, but when you seeing what you're capable of doing, like I'm sure, Margaret, through your journey and everything you did, you might not have expected certain results, but pushing yourself, right, and saying, "Oh, holy crap, I can do this," or "I did do this," and I mean, I think that's such a valuable part of just the human experience, right? Is learning what you're capable of doing, pushing those limits, feeling the reward from it, and all that stuff.
I also think too, the idea of finding a good support system around you that's going to be encouraging and uplifting. So one of the first things that I do now when I'm going to embark on something new is I find a mentor who I can pick their brain about the experience. I can ask them about their journey, and just learn a little bit about, some of their personal do's and don'ts to arrive at or achieve what they did. Mm-hmm. That way I have a little bit more insider clarity as I go to approach something. I think when you're younger, sometimes you're a little bit more hesitant to, approach people who you view in these big ways, and ask them, hey, can you talk to me a little bit about how you got here, how you achieved this? And so I think getting over that fear of, owning what you want to do to others, and then approaching them, with questions and with curiosity, I think that's important and something that I'll always encourage, because I think mentorship is really, really important in this life. Whether that's your peers, your immediate peers, and saying, hey guys, I'm thinking about doing something new or starting something new this way, or with my business or within my family, and having a positive and encouraging support system around you who's willing to be uplifting and realistic and hold you accountable. I think all those things help us along the journey, so that we feel confident too, because it's not just us that's kind of propping the journey up. It's the people around us. It's our tribe that's helping us too.
100%. Do you think that the younger, I say, generation going to somebody of the prestige or knowledge that we think of, do you think there plays like self-doubt? They doubt in what they know and what they're asking, and feeling that it's kind of maybe an odd way of looking at things, or just kind of will be feel judged with their presentation of what they're asking?
I think maybe there's just some communication gaps in younger folks where, like, for example, I notice when I walk into the physical classroom now, none of the students are talking even to each other. They're like in their phones, they're Snapchatting, TikToking, they're doing whatever. It's, it's them in a screen really is their interface. And so they're not having the same level of interpersonal interaction that I think is so important. And if there's one thing that I wish we could kind of get back to a little bit in our society is that interaction. I just had some students the other day who were talking about customer service. And this one student was like, I hate when I go into this particular store because they always come up to me and they always want to, immediately start a conversation. And I don't want to talk to anybody. So I leave my earbuds in. So hopefully I can just dart past them. And, to me, I feel kind of sad about that because it's like you're missing out on the opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who may share something interesting with you or like make you laugh for the day, you don't know.
Yeah. There's definitely something to be said about the confidence level of interacting socially, for instance, even at work, if I send an email, I always follow it up with a face-to-face, you know what I mean? Just
right.
But nowadays it's just like you said, younger people aren't learning how to interact properly and gaining that confidence. Like you said, even going up and asking a mentor, hey, whatever question you have. Nowadays it's you're in your phone or you're not, it's I think it's a handicap because at the end of the day business is done face to face, or you got to go face to face with somebody. You have to know how to speak
at some point. It's almost like nowadays kids don't know how to address an envelope or a letter, right? Like it's the same idea. Like it's almost like communication face to face is a dying art, and because I feel uncomfortable, interacting more online than other people would. Right. But I'm more of a social person where I would like to go out to, say a bar or a social event to be able to do my interaction.
Yeah. Same. I'm definitely going to hear a little bit of smack from some of my girls in my support system because I am always kicking and screaming when they try and get me to do any kind of webinar, anything. I'm like, no, I'm not going on camera. Now here I am with you guys hanging out, and they're going to catch wind of this and be like, wait a minute, girl, how did you end up over there with them? We've been asking you to do this for so long. But, one of my goals is I've been trying to break out of that comfort zone too. Like, it's not that I mind getting on camera. Obviously, I've been teaching on camera for 2 years now, so that's not the issue. It's just I'd rather sit in front of you two and talk to you face to face, right? No doubt. So since that's the preference, I've kind of been a little bit resistant, but I'm also leaning into the fact this is the new way that a lot of, our podcasting and broadcasting is done. And so just the last October, I did a virtual summit it was all focusing on women's empowerment through an organization that one of my best friends runs. It's called She Loves Social. And
we did. Give that a plug again. What was that called?
It's called She Loves Social. You can find her on Instagram. Her name is Jenny Valino. And she is awesome. She is the real queen. She stays making those videos and having fun while she's doing it. Me, I'm like, okay, put that ring light away. We're going to hang out now. Enough with all that. But she's really, really great at it and just is able to bring content to life in a really fun, creative way. And so she just launched her business this year and put together the Women's Empowerment Summit because October is Small Women's Business Month. So she wanted a bunch of us who were like womenpreneurs to get on and talk about a few different things. And so, that was a big one for me to kind of jump in and do that. And then when you guys asked me, I was like, I can say no, but I really should do it and lean into this challenge. So I'm glad that you guys. Thank you for the opportunity and the encouragement, gentlemen. I'm happy to be with you, and I'm eager to get the feedback from the girls once I confess that I agreed to do this.
So I'm interested a little bit in the women's empowerment. What's the main message for that, Margaret? If you don't mind explaining a little bit. I mean, I understand obviously the basic message, but what's the message that you talked about?
So through her company, what she works with a number of different brands, all that do something with different types of personal growth. So she has a client who does fitness. She has a client who does nutrition. She has a client who has a clothing brand. And so basically it's, she brought together these business leaders who kind of grown in those spaces and had us all come up with a central message from our growth. And so for me, one of my things that I talked about was the idea of leaning into your strengths, which is some of what I know we talked about prior to to me jumping on with you guys. And I talked a lot about the idea of agility and leaning into change, because if you don't lean into change, then you're going to end up stuck in a rut. It doesn't matter what profession you're in or what you're doing. And let's look at the fitness industry, for example. Like, everybody was going to the gym and suddenly we couldn't go to the gym anymore. So now every personal trainer, every class trainer has to find a way to bring their program into people's homes. You know, some people could do that really fluid. Others struggled with doing that. Some business owners, though, blew up because they were able to, you know, do one-on-one meetings for, you know, 6 hours a day on Zoom and have these individualized personal training sessions that actually spread their calendar out differently than it would if they were in the gym. So they were actually more successful through all of this. Plus, people were getting antsy. You know, they were sick and tired of being closed in. So they were looking forward to that workout maybe a little differently than they're coming home from work and they're tired. So there was a lot of opportunity there, you know, for growth. And so, you know, one of the things that my friend does that I really love about her brand is she focuses a lot on what she calls positivity promotion. You know, she's really focused on how do we take any task, any challenge, and bring a positive vibe to it. So she's all about, you know, those upbeat vibes. Again, in a very like noisy landscape where there's a lot of trolls, there's a lot of haters. How do we create a brand that can rise above all of that and survive in the midst of all of that? And so that's really something that she's done a great job with. So her summit is every year in October, and she had over a dozen speakers last year. It was really great. It's a free event online. So if you follow her on at She Loves Social on Instagram, you'll be able to follow along for next year. I hope to be invited back to speak again at next year's summit, but that's definitely a really awesome one to follow along.
We'll have to put all her information in the description after all this.
Definitely.
When we get it all tied together. So make sure you send that over to me, and I'll definitely put her links in, her names, and everything. Yep. That'd be cool.
I definitely will do that. And then also, it's interesting because it's been neat. She has a full-time job working in the healthcare industry. So again, it's just been kind of cool to see somebody who, you know, she has this 9-to-5 job, and it's like, okay, you know, that could just be her thing and what have you. But she's really motivated about having, you know, this side business and growing her entrepreneurship. And it's been really neat to see how she's embraced that. One thing she's taken on this year that I'm really proud of her about is she's doing more mentoring of others who want to kind of follow in her footsteps with some of the social media content creation and other things. And she's built her business very organically through her offline relationships. And I think that's why it's so important that we don't just forget that the offline world exists.
Right.
You know, and go full throttle at this online stuff, because at the end of the day, there is still all the connection that takes place when we're not on the computer too. And I think that's really how she's built up her brand well.
There's something to be said when you get an envelope with with ink to paper, and it's a handwritten note saying, you know, hey, thank you.
Yes.
It's away from social media. Actually, this year, one of my first, you know, big job that I sold, you know, over $100,000 was handwritten note, sent it out to departments where I needed to try to get in, and boom, got a phone call, and I was like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I appreciate how you said that you know,
yeah,
come in and finding value in that.
Well, I think the idea that, you know, that's probably the one thing that set you aside then from all those other emails that are hitting that person's inbox. Because I know I get a lot of inbox spam all the time from, you know, people who many of whom have valuable products for me to look at. I just don't have the time to weed through all their spam stuff. But if somebody, you know, writes me a letter or stops by my office, so there's like a physical body in front of me and I can't ignore them as they're there, you know, that usually breeds a different conversation. And even if I can't talk to them for long or engage much about what they're, you know, trying to sell me on in the moment, I can at least have a connection and move forward from that.
There's a lot to say in body language. There's a lot to say in that human interaction where you get to, I don't know, I feel like I'm a good character of vibes. Like, so you kind of get the intention of that real interaction.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So I think that's so important. That's one of the areas too, where in terms of like my consulting business, which is called Socially Inspired. And I'll send you my website too, nice. So you guys can send it out. At Socially Inspired, that's what's so neat, because my partner and I, we both come from, different backgrounds a little bit. Like she came out of more of an advertising background, than she came into higher ed through working in admissions. And I obviously came into higher ed through teaching. And she still does more on the strategic social media side than I do. But it's neat because we have a good yin and a yang going. Like there's certain clients that I won't take on, but she's very interested in, and vice versa. And so we bounce our clients off each other very well. And so I think that's something that's, very, very important. Like I was saying earlier, finding your tribe and being willing to go and grow with those people. One thing that I really commend my partner and I for, like we've had a rough year, and I don't mean fiscally or business-wise or COVID-wise. Like she and I both had a lot of death in our respective families in the last year. And so we've had to be very graceful and patient with each other as we've worked through our respective grieving process. Right, she just lost her grandmother recently. I lost mine about a year ago. She lost her father about 8 or 9 months ago, I believe. And then I lost my brother about a year ago. So it's just all this, it's just been kind of this, darker time, I think is, and yet business doesn't stop. So we have to figure a way to make it work, but we're very graceful and patient, and we take ownership of like what our situation is too. We're transparent with each other. We're transparent with our clients, and then we continue to pound the pavement and do what we got to do. So it's a nice balance. So in finding a tribe like that, it's not like I have a partner who's breathing down my neck. I'm not breathing down her neck. We have an understanding and a rhythm that really works for us. And when you find that in a business relationship, that is really clutch. That's definitely a secret ingredient to our recipe for success for our business.
So when we're, before we get into some questions, I want to open this up to the audience to see if we can get some interesting questions, and maybe, you've touched on some things that we can maybe dive a little bit further into before we close out for the evening. You talked a lot about surrounding yourself with good people, creating your tribe. So what advice do you have right now as we go into the new year for people that really want to take responsibility for their happiness? And, like you said earlier, again, going back to you saying, leaning into their commitments and understanding who they are, what type of advice can you give them going into the new year?
So I would say I'll go back to the good old advice that was my cliche advice, 14, 15 years ago, which is that idea of staying true to yourself and not trying to put yourself into somebody else's package for you. I think especially with social media and culture now, there's a lot of expectation of everybody to fit into these molds that others create. And then they find themselves not feeling as good as they want to about things. So I think that's important, being able to just, take ownership over who you are and be your original authentic self. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a shift back to that, where people are appreciating authenticity online more than they used to. Because I think we're starting to get a little fatigued of all like the fake it till you make it stuff. So I think we are seeing a little bit of a shift in a positive direction that way. And I do hope that trend continues. But, online, offline, or otherwise, I think staying true to who you are, like what makes you happy at the end of the day, what do you truly enjoy? Obviously, no relationship is going to be 100% perfect because it involves another person. No job is 100% perfect because it involves perhaps certain aspects that aren't your favorite. But what pieces of your relationships, what pieces of your work do you find most fulfilling, and how can you build upon those pieces so that you're getting the fulfillment and the satisfaction in life that you want for yourself? I think that's really important, and being honest about that inventory, having realistic expectations. So often we hear about like, perfection, and this, and I tend to think we're all a work in progress. I don't really believe in perfection. And I think setting ourselves up for that standard is setting ourselves up to fail. Especially, you guys and I were talking earlier about women. Women have this sort of unspoken pressure, like we need to do it all. And I talk to so many women who are like, I'm exhausted because I'm trying to do it all. And I'm like, girl, stop trying to do it all. Like, what are you really good at? What do you like doing? And then how do we make the rest of it work in spite of that, right? So instead of getting really overwhelmed and having anxiety or being stressed out or being miserable, it's like, okay, what can we do that's bringing you that joy, bringing you that satisfaction, and being graceful with yourself about it. Like, I know a lot of women who really beat themselves up about not being able to achieve more. It's like, there's only 24 hours in a day. We can only do so much. So I think that's a big piece. And then the other piece is this concept that I've been becoming more and more familiar with, and that is the concept of alignment. And so there's this woman, she's another just female boss. She's a PhD too. She teaches social work. Her name is Dr. Brené Brown. Okay. She's an author. She's written many New York Times bestseller lists. And one of my favorite books by her is this book called The Gift of Imperfection. Mm-hmm. Basically, it just tears down this myth of us trying to be perfect beings, and instead tells us almost like a guideline for how to take all these imperfect pieces of life and still be really happy with them.
Right.
And she talks a lot about the concept of alignment in her book, this idea that when we're not in balance with who we are, that's when things feel off. And so this idea of trying to be something other than who we genuinely are, and the idea of trying to show up and show out and do the most for others, right, instead of staying true to like our own integrity and, our own talents, our own gifts, and seeing them for what they are, instead of always feeling like we need to develop them or design them for somebody else's satisfaction. And that's been something I've been really focusing on a lot within my own personal growth, is just making sure things line up. Because when they start to come out of alignment, it's like being in a vehicle that's not aligned. Start having issues with its function, and it's not going to run true, right? And so the same goes for us. Like, we have to be doing our best work to keep all of our, our focus and our gifts and our efforts in alignment with who we are and what we hope to achieve. Because if we don't, we're being pulled in too many directions. That's when the fatigue sets in, things like depression, anxiety, other things like that. So I would say my two best pieces of advice as we, start to reach closing time here is that staying true to yourself, taking ownership of who you are, and taking ownership of your personal inventory. And then number two is working in ways, when I say work, I don't necessarily mean labor work, but just living life in a way that helps you to maintain your own alignment. And only you know what that is. You're the only one who can tell when something's really off rhythm. I think that's really important too.
Yeah. I love the part of accepting your own imperfections. This is something that me and Andrew talk about all the time. We talked about it last week, right? With self-care, it's understanding yourself, understanding that we're not perfect, and knowing your limitations, knowing where you can go or what you can do to make yourself better. I think the idea that people get this false picture of what they are sometimes, not understanding where their imperfections are, it really hurts them as far as what you're talking about, starting a career and doing stuff like that.
Right.
They don't really understand who they are. So
well, it also ties right into what you're saying with all the noise in social media.
Right.
I mean, how can you look inside of you who you are when you're constantly on a phone seeing all the glamorous things of life that life has to offer? You can't do that. You can't have that honest conversation with yourself. And I think to generalize a lot of this is with the self-care stuff is having the ability to self-reflect and have that conversation with yourself and have those deep conversations and ask and answer the questions that make you uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do right now, I'd like to open up the floor. Margaret, if you don't mind, let's see if we can get a couple questions. We do have one from Rebecca Turner 22. Margaret, what is your professional opinion on children not having social interactions with other kids their age?
Well, hi, Rebecca, and thank you for your question. This is really hard, and this is a conversation I have a lot with friends of mine that have young children is, what is considered an appropriate age for a kid to have a phone? What's considered an appropriate age for a kid to have social media access? And the truth is, that's a difficult question for me to answer for a few reasons. One, I'm not a parent, so I always think parenting decisions are personal decisions within an individual family dynamic. I think that there is a challenge that's happening with young kids. I remember years ago now, my brother Rich and I being out to dinner with family members, and Rich says, he's like, turn around. And I turn around and there's this table full of kids, probably ranging from the age of 4 or 5 to maybe 15. And every one of them is on a phone or a tablet. Nobody's interacting. Parents are on one end of the table. And that's just such a different experience than what we were used to growing up. We had to sit at the table and interact and, have conversations with each other. So I think that is a little bit complex. Where I would say that I have a concern is with things like conflict resolution, right? Because we have a lot of conflict behavior that we've made, we've normalized online that's really unacceptable offline. And so you see, there's a lot of things that people say back and forth to each other that if they were face to face, they probably wouldn't approach the subject the way they do. Right. That is an area where I'm worried. I worry more that we're not gaining these healthy interpersonal conflict skills because of our limited interaction due to social media. And I worry that we're gaining bad habits in the way that we're using social media to interact with each other. That would probably be one of my biggest issues of concern for children that are too young getting online. The other thing that worries me is we have a theory that talks about comparative advantages, this idea that, we do tend to very naturally compare ourselves to others. That's a human trait that most of us possess. We see an outfit that somebody else is wearing and we like it, we want to go buy it, right? We see a car we like, somebody else is driving, we want to go get the car. So that has always lived in human psychology, but now that we're seeing life lived through, the web and everybody's glorious life and, life through pictures and all these other things, I think there is more personal comparison that's happening than has been historically, because before you had to see it in real life to make a comparison. But now that we're seeing all these influencers and people with real or would-be clout, stepping forward and showing us how great our life should be, that worries me a little bit for young people, because I don't think it portrays in all forms an authentic pursuit. I think it can be misleading for young people, and that worries me too.
Okay, a great answer. So we have another question from LA Art Society. What are your thoughts, social media strategy wise, about the metaverse and the future of social media marketing? It's a great question.
It's a great question. In fact, this was the question that we talked about the last day of school in my strategic social media class. I asked my students, 16 weeks earlier, when Facebook was still Facebook and we didn't have the metaverse yet, I said to them, what do you think the future holds for social media strategy and social media marketing? They had one set of answers. And then 16 weeks later, the metaverse has arrived. The last day of class was after that gentleman had purchased the make-believe yacht experience with NFT currency. And, so I'm like, so let me get this straight. Somebody just paid millions of dollars to sit behind a set of lenses to go on a yacht. Like, this is what we're doing now. And this is what we're doing now. So how does this change things? I think what's going to happen next up is that our social media strategy is going to become increasingly more interactive. And so it's going to be more about experiencing the media as opposed to just consuming it. And so if you think about it, we've already bought into this. Think about TikTok, right? Nobody was doing anything with TikTok. Suddenly we're all in lockdown, and now everybody's doing dance challenges and climbing up crate hills and all this stuff, right? So what we told the internet at that point is we said, hey, yeah, well, should give us something to do, we'll do it. And right. So now that we've bought into that, the obvious answer is, all right, well, how do I create a digital experience that gets them to buy in? So what do I think this means? I think it'll be interesting to see in the next turnabout. Are we still going to be using the metaverse from our phone, or are we going to be using the metaverse from like some sort of weird cloud that looms over us? Are we all going to have, a glasses chip, and that's going to be our, way to the metaverse, and then we can see things? I mean, there's the possibilities from a tech standpoint are endless, but I think we're going to be more involved. I think there's going to be more artificial intelligence. I think there's going to be more augmented reality experiences. I think that's going to be the direction. And so I think that for now, companies are going to have to continue to invest in social media managers and social media strategists to work for them, because this doesn't seem to be going away, and it actually seems to be ramping up more and more. Once upon a time, you could just have, your secretary at the front desk doing some social media posts, and that was kind of sufficient to have a social presence. But now we're seeing that there's more and more of a niche expertise required. For example, like for our football team here in Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Jaguars, we've had a relationship at UNF with them for years. And every year I plan a social media expo conference in October, and the Jags usually send somebody from their social media team out or their marketing team out to present for us. Well, their marketing team has grown now into several individual roles. They have somebody who's just doing short form video. They have a videographer and photographer. They have somebody who's only doing the strategy and posting. So they have now separated the responsibilities so that they can do more and harness more with the web. So I think there's going to be more professional opportunities for sure. But I also think we're going to keep seeing tech influence the changes that are coming our way with this for sure.
Yeah. Can I be like 100% transparent? I have no freaking clue what's a metaverse.
Well,
I'm old and I'm unplugged, man. I mean, I have no freaking clues.
The metaverse is it's a new brand. So right after, I'm trying to think when this was. It was right after the whistleblower situation happened, one of many.
With Facebook.
Where, it came out again that, Facebook is using our data in ways that may make us feel uncomfortable, but also ways that we sanction. We agree to let them use our data. So it's always intriguing to me when people get upset about this, because I'm like, we agreed to that. We knew that they were going to be gathering our information. So right after that whole thing happened, they did a major rebrand. And now they're calling the parent company that owns Facebook, Instagram, is now the MetaVerse. And I think the rebrand was intentional to include this idea now of artificial reality and artificial intelligence coming into, I think they want to create these more virtual lived experiences. So I think this is I think they're doing a tech pivot, and a rebranding was a convenient way to do that. Now, you bring up a great point though, Matt. How many of the users are going to stick around, right? Because Facebook has historically aged up very well. We have older users now using that platform. Are people my parents' age going to, buy into augmented reality? I don't know that they would. Yeah. I don't think they would.
I still have no. You explained it to me. I still have no freaking clue. I don't understand any of it, and I think there's a lot of people like me, and I think that's probably where the hard sell is going to be. It's like, dude, I have no idea what the hell you're even talking about, and I'm fine with the way things are now. So,
I think what they're going to be able to do, what the little bit that I know about it is, like, you're going to be able to have a full runway experience and be able to take the coat that the model's wearing and purchase it all digitally with digital currency, whole digital experience from the convenience of your own home. And next thing you know, it's going to be dropped outside your front door, that same coat that you saw in the digital world. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds and how it opens up.
Right. We've seen Amazon start to do this. For example, like they have a feature in some of their furniture products where you can actually like take a picture of where you want the furniture to go. It does these digital dimensions and it shows you what the piece of furniture will look like there, right? And so that's the idea of what's going to come to life. And I think it is going to open more e-commerce opportunities. Oh, you like this jacket? You've clicked on it. You've browsed it. Here, we'll let you virtually try it on and see how it looks. So it instead of you buying it, then you have to try it on in person. It kind of cuts some of that real live action out of it and allows the virtual power, if you will, to enable you to do more. and have more of a seamless shopping experience. And so they've been working on this for a while. Pinterest started doing it years ago when you could look at a Pinterest post and you could click on things and virtually add them to your cart and buy them right from a post. They were one of the first platforms to do it. Now it just keeps swelling in different ways and just new ways of doing things, you know. But I hear you, Matthew, because if it were up to me, and at some point here, I probably will sign off. It's hard though, as somebody who studies this, to surrender completely. I went off social media for 10 months last year, and it was awesome. I loved it. It was great. It was peaceful. I didn't miss it at all.
You didn't feel it?
No. No, I felt great. I felt great. I felt like I was living real life. That's what I felt I was doing.
Well, listen, Margaret, we really do appreciate you coming on
so much.
I think there's a lot that we're going to be able to take from this conversation and get it out to our people and our network. I hope to have you on in future shows and we can dig into certain things a little bit more, and especially as this metaverse unfolds. We'd love to hear your perspective.
Sure.
And thank you again for coming on. Matt,
Thanks
do you have any closing words, brother?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're probably going to have to explain the metaverse another 5 or 1,000 times to me. I'm perplexed about this whole thing. I'm going to have to look it up. It's scary to me. I don't know what the hell's going on. We don't go to stores anymore. People don't try. You don't sit on a piece of furniture and you want to do that. I don't know. It's just it's a little too much.
It could be the new wave of how things are going. You know, I mean, time will really tell. It is interesting how all this technology influences change. But then let's look at the positive side, right? Because it offers us to do things like this, which are awesome. So, you know, there's the pros and the cons. We've got to weigh it out, but it is a little bit unsettling when you think of, you know, how our everyday life and behavior is changing based on these, you know, technologies and how it is going to change our life experiences. So buckle in because we are in for a ride. That's for sure.
Well, thanks so much, Margaret. Yeah,
thank you again. Everybody, we'll get some information about her friend's organization, her consulting business. We'll get all that in the descriptions below. Again, Dr. Stu, appreciate you very much. I love you very much. And thank you for being a part of this range, 1775, hon.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's quite the pleasure to be the first female guest. It was my pleasure to be with you both, and keep at it because I think this is awesome what you guys are doing, and I'm excited to see where this goes for you. Happy to join you guys anytime, and have a great new year. Much love to you. God bless. Semper Fi, guys.
Yep.
Semper Fi. Semper Fi. Dude, that was great, huh?
Yeah, my mind's still trying to wrap around this crap. The
metaverse has gotten Matt confused, everybody.
It doesn't take much. Anybody who knows me. Well, we were talking about what is the
NFTs. Yeah,
I have no idea what that is, and you tried to explain it to me like 1,000 times. So
we'll get into everything, but dude, that is really good perspectives of a lot of things. Dude, I think there's a lot of knowledge there. I think there's a lot more information that we can dig out of her and provide to our network. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. You know, I so appreciate her transparency about looking inward in herself through her whole journey. It seemed every new obstacle, there was a self-reflection, right? And it's, I mean, the bar is high. I mean, we've had great guests, but
no, she definitely set the bar high. Yeah. And I really want to take this time right now on behalf of Matt and myself and just our movement at Disarranged. We really appreciate the interaction, everybody. I love seeing the comments. I love seeing the back and forth and the different networks of people connecting. This is what this is about. And
that was Bruno.
That was Matt's horse of a dog. But regardless, we thank you very much for being a part of us. Thank you very much for spending your Wednesday evening with us. Yeah. I say every week that time is our most valuable asset, and the fact that you've spent the hour and 15 minutes with us. Listening to us and our guests means the world to me and Matthew. So I hope everybody comes next week and joins us Wednesday at 7 p.m. live, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next week, everybody, have a great one. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And be safe out there.
Yep.